Inside the Magic, show number 385 for August 19th, 2012. It is Sunday, August 19th, 2012. This is show 385 of Inside the Magic, and as always, I am your host, Ricky Briganti, and we've got another great show packed with Disney and theme park news and plenty more fun. And before we get to all of that, I do invite you to visit our website over at InsideTheMagic.net. There you will not only find our podcasts, but also plenty of other videos, pictures, news, articles, and a whole lot more. And if you ever have any news, tips, questions, comments, or anything else you want to send in, you can always write me an email by writing to Ricky at InsideTheMagic.net, or you can call and leave a message on our voicemail line at 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. Adventures by Disney Vacations are amazing, carefree family experiences with memories that will last a lifetime. 2013 itineraries are available, and you can lay away your vacation today and receive up to a $500 Visa gift card when you book an Adventures by Disney destination vacation. So call Magical Travel today at 866-207-8387 or visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote, and be sure to mention Inside the Magic to receive your free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And by listeners and viewers like you, and thanks very much this week to Xavier Brenet, or Brennett, probably Brenet, for your donation, and of course to all of our monthly recurring donation subscribers, and anybody who clicks through any of the affiliate links, Amazon, etc., over on InsideTheMagic.net. We get credit if you click through those before you make any purchases, and I thank you very much for that. And now, let's get started with our trip around the world. Pretty exciting news week this week. Not a lot of special events or anything happening there, but definitely some excitement to look forward to in the coming days and weeks and months. And the closest bit of news that I can possibly mention here is actually going to take place tomorrow morning. For those of you tuning into the show after Monday, August 20th, you kind of have already missed the first opportunity to make your reservation for Be Our Guest. The new restaurant for new Fantasyland reservations will be opening up on Monday, August 20th at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, and the first available dinner date will be November 19th. So those of you who want to be among the first to dine at Be Our Guest, you're going to want to be on the phone or in person at a Walt Disney World guest services or guest relations location to make those reservations. You won't be able to make an online reservation for Be Our Guest until August 22nd. So your best bet, well, you got three options. You can call 407-WDW-DINE. You can visit a guest relations theme park location, or you can visit a guest services desk at a Walt Disney World hotel. All of those are your options for making a reservation. You will need a credit card to secure that reservation. And just a little bit more information about the Be Our Guest restaurant. Of course, it's in the Magic Kingdom, part of the new Fantasyland expansion, and there will be offering both lunch and dinner service, but reservations will only be required for, or available rather, for dinner service. Lunch, there are no reservations. Lunch will take one quick service credit if you're on the Disney dining plan. Dinner takes one table service credit, and that's what's unique about this restaurant. They're splitting it up between lunch and dinner. Lunch is quick service and dinner is table service. It is not character dining for anyone who perhaps is thinking that it is. It's a Beauty and the Beast type experience, but no characters will be around. And while there are three different wings within the Be Our Guest restaurant, each themed to a different area of Beast's Castle, you will not be able to reserve a specific area or wing when you make your reservation. Now, if you go to the restaurant earlier in the day or when you show up to check in for your reservation, you will be able to request an area, but there's no guarantees, and again, you can't reserve it. So that's the latest about Be Our Guest. Of course, there's a possibility that it'll open sooner than November 19th for some soft openings, maybe pass holder previews, maybe anything like that. But as far as reservations go, November 19th is the first dinner date, and tomorrow morning, August 20th, 7 a.m. is when reservations will open. And if you're calling on the phone, you should expect long waits, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be calling trying to make those reservations. So speaking of New Fantasyland, this week some interesting new artwork was released from Disney as well about New Fantasyland, which prompted me to kind of take a look back at the concept art and how it's changed over the last few years since New Fantasyland, the expansion, the biggest ever expansion of the Magic Kingdom, was announced in 2009 at the D23 Expo. Of course, when they announced that, they unveiled this great overview piece of concept art showing the entirety of the expansion from the Be Our Guest restaurant and the Beauty and the Beast area on the left, all the way over to the Double Dumbo on the right, both elements of which have remained over the years, as has the Little Mermaid ride, but plenty of changes have happened in the meantime as well when they revised their ideas of what New Fantasyland would be in over the next couple of years. They dropped some of the elements. They dropped some of the princess meet and greet cottages that they were going to put in there. They dropped Pixie Hollow. If you remember, there was going to be a very large Pixie Hollow area as part of the expansion when it was first announced, and that became dropped over the years. And they revised the artwork then in 2011 or so to add the Seven Dwarves Mine Train. Of course, they also revealed that Snow White's Scary Adventures would be closing, which it has, in order to make way for Princess Fairy Tale Hall, which is going to be the home of the meet and greets. And then they also, offered the Storybook Circus concept, more than just Double Dumbo. It would be so much more than that, which is well on its way to completion at this point. Now, this week, that brings us, of course, to 2012, where Disney has released the latest in the concept art for New Fantasyland. What they're calling this latest batch is a signature image. That seems to be how they're referring to it. That's a new phrase to Disney fans, and it's more of a sort of an idealized version of what New Fantasyland looks like. It removed the people from the concept art, the tourists, the guests walking around, and really just showed sort of this magical forest, if you will, this Fantasyland forest, this enchanted forest, and an overview of what it will kind of all not seriously look like. I mean, this is not a realistic portrayal. It doesn't show, the roads surrounding the Magic Kingdom. It shows rolling hills and mountains in the background, but, I kind of like it. It's a very artistic, sort of idealized representation of what New Fantasyland will feel like when you are there, as opposed to what it legitimately, accurately will look like. In addition to that new piece of artwork, which of course you can see over at InsideTheMagic.net, they also released a couple of sort of idealized artistic versions of the Beauty and the Beast area with Belle sitting in front of Maurice's cottage and Beast's castle in the distance, sort of the castle in the sky, and then also the Little Mermaid area with Prince Eric's castle on a beach side with water, and Ariel sitting on a rock. And again, these are not really looking exactly like they're going to look in real life, but sort of just an artistic representation of what New Fantasyland will feel like for people going there. So I think they're nice images. If you haven't seen them yet, definitely head on over to InsideTheMagic.net to check them out. This week over at the Magic Kingdom, the new Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom game booster packs, or extra packs of trading cards, were first made available just a couple of days ago, and they sold out on their first day. No surprise there. A lot of fans showed up first thing in the morning once Disney announced that they were going to be there, and they are not permanently sold out. They will be back at some point in the coming days, and in the first day they were limiting it to 5 packs per person. And they sold out pretty quickly within, the first hour or so of the park being open. Of course, each one of those packs contains a number of cards that are already in circulation as part of the Sorcerers in the Magic Kingdom game, as well as one of the new rare cards, the top 10 numbered cards, and a game board and some game pieces and rules and that kind of thing for you to be able to play a home version of Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom as well. So if you're a big fan of that and you missed out on Friday, don't worry. They are going to get more of those packs in. They just don't quite have them yet. Now let's turn our attention over to Epcot, where Disney confirmed and sort of announced this week the makeover that would be coming to the France Pavilion over at Epcot. There have been a lot of rumors suggesting the bakery over there was going to get a major overhaul. Well, it's going to be much more than that. In fact, a lot of the restaurants and eating opportunities at France at Epcot are going to get a complete overhaul. At Bistro de Paris, or Bistro de Paris, is going to get a new look, a new name, new costumes, a new menu. It's essentially going to be an entirely new restaurant. They're saying it's going to be less formal, and they also call it, the new version is going to be elegant but not stuffy. whatever that means, and it will still feature, as they put it, true French cuisine. Apparently, this is going to be the first time that restaurant has been updated in 25 years. So, you know, if you're a fan of that particular French restaurant at Epcot, you're going to want to head over there ASAP before it essentially disappears and becomes a new restaurant. Also, as far as the bakery goes, they are reinventing the bakery. They're expanding it. It's going to be much larger and more inviting. Have a lot more options for foods. It's going to be sandwiches and more meals that you can eat right there in the bakery. It's going to have about 90 seats apparently inside, and then a smaller location is going to be turned into a glacier ice cream parlor. So all of that's going to take place in the coming months. They haven't really announced much more than that as far as what the new restaurant will be called and the menu itself, etc. But it's certainly always good to have some new options. And you know, when something's 25 years old, not a bad idea to give it sort of a refresh and make it more inviting to everyone. Many are worried about them, quote unquote, dumbing down the French restaurant when they say it's not going to be as stuffy, but I'm not too concerned about it. I think, you know, they'll do a good job. As long as it's got some good food and a nice atmosphere, that's good enough for me. Moving over to the water parks over at Typhoon Lagoon, there have been some reports that this week free Wi-Fi, which was previously made available over at the Magic Kingdom and, of course, around the hotels, apparently popped up at Typhoon Lagoon. Of course, you must be thinking, Wi-Fi, water park, you know, drop your iPhone into the water, probably not a good idea. But, you know, you can imagine going there and sitting by the water on a lounge chair on the beach area, pulling out your iPad, surfing the web, or, you know, downloading some music or whatever. You know, Wi-Fi is not a bad thing, especially when it is free, as long as you steer clear of the water with those electronic devices. Now moving on to Downtown Disney. This week, Walt Disney World announced a new virtual experience, as they're calling it. It will be coming very, very soon. Starting September 1st will be Phineas and Ferb and You, a brand new reality. That's the entire name of the experience. It's going to be a 30-second experience in which you'll be put into a virtual set. I imagine that's going to have something to do with a green screen or a blue screen, and you will dance and play with characters from Phineas and Ferb. 20 randomly selected animation segments will be part of it. You go in, they pick one for you, and you kind of play along for 30 seconds, and afterward you can download and share a free souvenir photo, and then of course there will be merchandise available as well, Phineas and Ferb merchandise. It's all going to be located at Downtown Disney out here at Walt Disney World on the west side next to Bongo's Cuban Cafe, open daily from 2 to 9:30 p.m. and again, it's starting September 1st and will continue daily through December 1st. Back, over to the theme parks. I previously said that the next-gen sort of FastPass Plus, the RFID FastPass, the latest round of testing was supposed to begin just a few days ago. Apparently, that test has been bumped back a little bit to September. And so you're going to have to wait a little while longer if you want to see the new version of FastPass up and running at the Magic Kingdom. There are also rumors that the RFID-based FastPass system is going to make its way over to Disney's Hollywood Studios next, with a number of attractions over there. You know, all the ones you might imagine, Star Tours and Tower of Terror, Rock and Roller Coaster, Toy Story Midway Mania, etc., etc. But that is rumor at the moment. Certainly those RFID posts that were previously part of the previous test at the Magic Kingdom have begun appearing once again around the Magic Kingdom at various attractions. I believe they are actually updated versions of them, a little bit more, a little better looking posts this time around, sort of themed to each of the attractions, more of an indication of what this system ultimately will look like when Disney is ready to officially roll it out. But for now, it seems some more testing will continue on this FastPass of the future next month. Let's turn away from Disney here for some interesting news coming out of Universal Orlando this week for you Harry Potter fans out there. A lot of rumors have been flying around about Harry Potter 2.0, the expansion of Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and while it has been officially announced that Universal is indeed expanding the Wizarding World, they haven't released any details yet. However, this week, a map was released, an official map from Universal Orlando in their team member newsletter, which is a newsletter for their employees, showing some backstage work that'll be going on at Universal Studios Florida, and they said that the route along which the map shows work will be going will feature, quote, infrastructure upgrades and utility maintenance. However, that particular route is a direct line specifically leading between the former Jaws ride area. Jaws, of course, is closed, and it's a future expansion as it's labeled on the map. And on the other end of the route is the 8th Voyage of Sinbad, which is right next to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And, of course, the rumor has been that the Universal is going to link these two areas with a Hogwarts Express train attraction sort of thing. So this seems to indicate that they are moving down that path. However, I will stress that none of this has been announced, confirmed, or even hinted at, really, from Universal. This is just one tiny official step toward maybe possibly moving in that direction. Seems highly likely, but we will have to wait and see. Moving beyond that, over to Busch Gardens in Tampa. This week, the full lineup of Howl-O-Scream 2012 was released. Well, almost the full lineup, actually. They listed out all their haunted houses, the scare zones, and most of the shows. Apparently, there's going to be a couple of more street shows that they haven't talked about quite yet. But that aside, they've also unveiled their icon for this year's event called Trickster, and he's some sort of cross between a monster that wears a clown mask and something or other. I don't know. But if you want all the details about Howl-O-Scream this year, head on over to InsideTheMagic.net. Continuing with the Halloween theme, but jumping coasts over to Universal Studios Hollywood. A couple of more haunted houses were revealed this week for rounding out that event. One of them very unusual. Again, this is for Hollywood, not Orlando. And this is a house called Universal Monsters Remix. And it's going to be in the House of Horrors, sort of daily haunted house that they have there, but they're going to update it with kind of a dance party. They're going to have the classic Universal monsters sort of reinvented, and in the midst of it all, there's going to be dubstep and industrial music. Odd concept, but who knows? Maybe it could work out in the end. The other house they announced this week is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house, which they have dubbed the Saw as the Law, and they have previously featured mazes based on the 2003 remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but this one is going to actually be based on the 1974 original film. So some interesting mazes for Hollywood. Sticking with California, but jumping over to the Disneyland Resort now. Some big changes have taken place over in Cars Land already. It's only about 2 months old now, and Luigi's Flying Tires has lost its beach balls. Permanently removed from Luigi's Flying Tires are those big red, white, and green beach balls that added sort of a kinetic bit of fun to the attraction, bouncing them around, picking up, throwing them, etc. Now the beach balls are gone, and you're left with just the flying tires. Why did Disney do that? What's the future of this attraction? Well, here's the statement they released. Quote, "We regularly make modifications of attractions to provide guests with the best possible experience. We are looking forward to introducing new creative elements to the attraction in the future, but we've got nothing to announce on those elements today." End quote. So, why specifically the beach balls were removed remains to be known. Of course, there have been some reports of minor instances where guests were bumped in the heads with flying beach balls, but they are just bouncy, soft beach balls, and that really didn't matter too much. I think Disney is really just trying to find the best way to improve this attraction so that a larger portion of Cars Land visitors enjoy it. I certainly loved the ride. It's different. It's unique. I thought it was a fun, throwback to the flying saucers years ago, decades ago, in fact, at Disneyland. And it's this ride is what you make of it. You have to make it fun for it to be fun. If you just sit there and do nothing, it's going to be boring as anything. And unfortunately, it seems like a lot of guests are doing that. So Disney's trying to find a way to make it appeal to a larger portion of their guests. Apparently, also, they're working on speeding up the tires themselves by removing some excess weight from them, as well, about 20 pounds of weight that doesn't need to be on there, some infrastructure underneath, so that'll speed them up just a little bit, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm sure 20 pounds is not a lot, especially considering, different people of different sizes can weigh certainly a difference of 20 pounds plus. So, yeah. Anyway, we will see what happens to Luigi's Flying Tires in the coming months, but for now, no beach balls anymore. And Disney is now preparing Fantasmic over at Disneyland to have Glow with the Show interactions. The Glow with the Show ears that debuted with World of Color a couple of months ago. Also worked with the Mad Tea Party and in Cars Land and a variety of areas that the ears light up and flash and blink and fade, all in time with various things. Well, Fantasmic is the next for that, and they're going to debut that with an annual pass holder event on Tuesday, August 28th, a little more than a week from now, from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. If you're a Disneyland annual pass holder, you can take part in this. However, unlike previous Glow with the Show events, they are not going to be handing out Glow with the Show ears for free this time. They're saying they want you to bring your own hats, which basically means if you don't already have one, you have to buy them. They're $25 for the hat. I'm sure they'll make them available there during the event as well. They're saying the hats are strongly encouraged for optimal viewing experience. So, yeah, that makes sense. I'm sure they're using this night to shoot another video where they can put it up on their Disney Parks blog and on their YouTube channel to show off the Glow with the Show technology. If you are a Disneyland annual pass holder and you want to attend this event, you don't have to have the hats, but you probably should for the most enjoyment, as they put it. You and up to 3 pass holder guests can visit any ticket booth in the Esplanade between the two parks. And that's how you register. You have to show your annual pass, obviously, and photo ID. You get a voucher, and the one who registers has to be at least 18 years old, but the 3 accompanying pass holders can be younger than 18, and registration will close when all spots are full. They didn't say how many spots there are, or at 10 p.m. on Thursday, August 23rd, whichever comes first. And there's no online or phone options. You have to register there in person. Then, if you don't make it to the annual pass holder event, all Disneyland guests will be able to participate with the Glow with the Show version of Fantasmic on August 31st, so just a couple of days later. Also at Disneyland, some surprising news came out this week regarding the candlelight ceremony and processional. Normally about 2 nights each year, Disneyland has decided to extend that holiday offering to 20 nights this year. A big, big difference for 2012. There will be 2 performances of candlelight each night, and the first 2 on December 1st and 2nd will be invitation only. However, December 3rd through 20th will be open to Disneyland Resort annual pass holders, as well as guests booking dining packages that they haven't revealed the details for yet for the 2012 holiday season. So if you're a fan of candlelight and never quite made it out, or you always, it was tough to make it to one of the very few events that they had, you now have 20, well, really 40 opportunities to catch it, because it's 2 performances each night. Of course, if you're not a fan of candlelight, then, well, you're going to be visiting Disneyland during the holiday seasons, and you almost can't ignore it, because it's going to be taking over the front of the park, town square / train station area for 20 nights throughout December. And moving outside of the parks, though still park-related, Disney, the official, or rather the Walt Disney Company, launched an official blog this week. It's the first time the Walt Disney Company as a whole has a blog. It's called the Disney Post, and you can find it at thewaltdisneycompany.com/blog. And they've been blogging so far about a variety of topics, all the way from art of animation out here at Walt Disney World to many other sort of non-theme park topics as well. So just another opportunity to get some official Disney posts. And now let's turn to the world of movies, where a release date was set this week. Well, the release date's not this week, but this week they set the release date for Marvel Studios' sequel to Marvel's The Avengers. Of course, The Avengers, hugely popular movie at the box office, and Joss Whedon will be returning to write and direct the sequel. It doesn't have a title yet. It's just untitled Marvel's Avengers sequel yet, but the release date that was set is May 1st, 2015. So quite a number of years away. It's only 2012, so about 3 years away before we see another Avengers movie. But in the meantime, there will be other Marvel movies, more Thor, more Iron Man, more Captain America, and I'm sure all of those will tie into the next Avengers 3 years from now. One more bit of news this week, actually, is sort of this bizarre connection between Universal and Disney. Universal 100th Anniversary Blu-ray / DVD collection is going to be coming out. It's pretty expensive, like $250 or so, but it's going to contain about 25 movies, a bunch of bonus features, a bunch of shorts. And it's because of the shorts that I bring this up here, because 4 Oswald the Lucky Rabbit shorts will be contained are included on this Universal Studios 100th anniversary set. Well, why is Oswald on this Universal set? And that's because of, well, if you might remember, of course, for many, many years, Disney did not own Oswald because of how sort of the dealings went down years and years ago when Walt Disney first invented Oswald. He was with some other folks with Universal, in fact, and then through some poor contract management, Universal ended up retaining control over Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Once it left Disney's hands, they went on to produce some additional shorts without Disney, featuring this Oswald character, and it's those shorts that will be included on this set, sort of the post-Disney Oswald shorts. They're called Spooks, Merry Old Soul, Waxworks, and Cartoonland Mysteries. They're all from the 30s, and so if you're sort of an all-encompassing Oswald fan and you want to see everything, this will be a good way to do that. Of course, Oswald was semi-recently returned back to Disney in a trade for commentator Al Michaels. A very bizarre trade there, but it's pretty interesting that Universal has decided to include those 4 shorts on this 100th anniversary set, knowing well that Disney is very much popularizing Oswald the Lucky Rabbit lately with Epic Mickey and in the parks, etc. So, interesting bit there. And finally, to round this section out, I want to put in an important mention here. I had the unfortunate news this week come across that a longtime Inside the Magic listener and a big part of the Disney online fan community passed away this week. His name was Nolan Woodall. He went by Diz Nolan online, and I didn't know him in person, but I have exchanged emails with him in the past. And he was a big part, as I said, of the Disney community. Definitely a terrible, terrible thing to hear that anybody who's part of the Inside the Magic audience, or really the Disney fan community in general, a lot of people really, really loved him. And I just wanted to kind of mention him here and let everybody know that we are thinking about him and his family and his friends. And it's always terrible to hear about this sort of thing. So just wanted to give him a little mention here. So anyway, that'll do it for your news from around the world this week. So this week's tip comes in from Brian, and this is taking us back out to Cars Land for Disney California Adventure. Some of these tips may be a little bit obvious to some, but they are definitely very, very helpful. Brian writes that I finally got out to see the new Cars Land and was just completely blown away by the new Radiator Springs racers. The technology involved in this attraction is over the top amazing, and the animatronics of the life-size Cars characters were phenomenal. I do have a few tips for those who are planning on visiting the attraction in the coming year. I strongly suggest to arrive at least 45 minutes before the park opens to get in line for a Fast Pass. They usually open Buena Vista Street about half an hour before the official park opening to allow people to line up. And once you've received that Fast Pass, go ahead and hold on to it throughout the day. Unlike out here at Walt Disney World, Disneyland is not enforcing the return times on Fast Passes, so that means you can use it anytime during the day after the posted return time on the ticket. Radiator Springs Racers, in my opinion, is a much better experience at night, so you can use the Fast Pass from the morning to then ride it at night and get a visually stunning view of the Ornament Valley all lit up. My other tip is to take advantage of the single rider line. Although you will be split up from your group, the wait is usually no longer than 30 minutes as opposed to an easily 2-hour wait for the regular line, the standby line. I was able to ride racers 3 times, twice during the day using single rider and once at night from that Fast Pass in the morning. Brian, a great strategy there. Definitely Radiator Springs Racers still remains very, very popular, and I can't imagine that's going to stop anytime soon. It is the premier attraction at Disney California Adventure and almost even at the entire Disneyland Resort at this point. Certainly posting the longest wait times, and grabbing that Fast Pass in the morning and then saving it all the way till after dark is a great idea, because I completely agree with you. The ride is wonderful during the day, but even better at night. So great tip. Definitely a good recommendation. Everyone else, email your tips into tips@insidethemagic.net. And before we jump into this week's main features, let me put in a quick word about Lanyard Lab. If you have a business you'd like to promote, or maybe you're at a school or a church or any organization where you have to wear name tags or IDs around your neck, then you're going to want to visit us over at lanyardlab.com. There you'll be able to customize your own lanyard, fill out our quote request form, submit all your ideas to us, any graphics, any text, any colors that you want to put on there, send that all to us, and we will email you back with a price quote along with the proof showing you what the lanyards will look like. You can order online from there, and it is really as simple as that. So check it out over at lanyardlab.com. That's LANYARDLAB.com. And let me also just mention real quick, thank you very much to all of you listeners out there for inquiring with us. I've got a lot of you have mentioned that you are an Inside the Magic fan when you inquire, and it's always great to hear that. So thanks very much for checking it out. This past weekend at the Disneyland Hotel, of course, at the Disneyland Resort, was Destination D, 75 years of Disney feature animation. A great milestone there. And we sent Jeremiah Daws out there to cover the event for us. I unfortunately couldn't make it there, but I was happy to send him out. And we're going to be talking about everything, all the excitement and all the good stuff and a little bit of the bad stuff that came out of there. Jeremiah, did you have fun at Destination D?
I had a lot of fun. It was a blast.
Excellent. So it was a 2-day event over the past Saturday and Sunday, pretty much all day, right? I mean, you were at the Disneyland Hotel from morning to evening?
Yeah. I got doors opened around, I think, 9, and first day I didn't end up leaving there until about 11 at night, so it was crazy.
Yeah, so an all-day event, and of course we sent you as press to cover the event. A regular ticket for the event would have been $225, so pretty pricey event. Before we get into the specifics of it, coming out of it as a whole, do you feel like if you had paid the $225, you would have come out the other side happy with that price?
I think so. I definitely, with some of the added things on the last day, especially the Alan Menken concert, things like that.
Right.
It really put me over the top. It was great.
Good. All right, so let's get into some specifics. Of course, as I said, you were at the Disneyland Hotel, and it seems like when you got there was some just a little bit of decorations greeting you there.
Yeah, there's some floor-to-ceiling artwork from 5 or 6 of the movies, just kind of getting you amped for it. Everybody was stopping and taking pictures, and it was a good, like any Disney event, they know how to sort of welcome you into it.
Right. So moving past there, where exactly in the hotel was the event located?
There's a convention center, and I don't know if you've ever been to that room, but I've been in there a few times. And there's a sunken, the stage is sunken, and the floor in the center is sunken below the stage, and then the left and right sides of the hall are kind of built up, so it's kind of an odd-looking convention hall, but it's really nice with a great big chandelier in the center.
So right at the beginning, the very first presentation, I guess you were welcomed by Steven Clark, head of D23.
Yep, he came out and it was kind of informal. He talked about how the previous D23s didn't have enough bathroom breaks, and he said so. Had a sort of a mock announcement. We've added bathroom breaks this time, and everybody cheered. It was quite funny.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to ask you about, because I did go to D23, Destination D rather, when it was out here in Orlando, and it was packed. I mean, I literally was in my seat all day except for one small lunch break in the middle. It seemed like you had some pretty good breaks built into the all-day schedule this time.
We did. There were a few panels that went long, which I don't think anybody was complaining. But they did give us 5 minutes where we should have had 15, that kind of thing. But nobody was crossing their legs. I don't think it was fun.
Well, that's good. So we get back to, or you're just getting started on Destination D, and tell me a little bit about this sort of welcome that happened following Steven Clark.
Well, they had a sort of a flash mob of dancers. Disney dancers would, and apparently they were all fans. They were just volunteers that had learned this choreography and had, or at least that's what he said. I don't know. And then they ended with a big sort of rain of confetti, and yeah, it was just a cool, energetic way of starting the show. so that was fun. They also showed a montage of all the great Disney movies, kind of on a animator's palette. So that was kind of cool to just
Hmm.
kind of set the tone. And then the final thing on that session was an introduction by John Lasseter. So he sort of
Not
prepped,
in person.
not in person. It was a video of him at Pixar, and he prepped us, told us kind of some of the cool things we were going to get to see. You know, he confirmed that we would get to see Paperman and stuff like that. So, and then a free giveaway. He gave us all Mary Blair sketchbooks. You know, with art. Well, it's art on the cover of Mary Blair, and then they're
Right.
blank pages, and so.
Yeah, so a little bit of an extra freebie there that wasn't part of the description. Now, when I talked to Tim O'Day, who of course was pumping up this event a couple of weeks ago, he had insinuated there would be some surprises throughout the week. And aside from this sort of sketchbook, I understand maybe there little few surprises here and there, but nothing as mind blowing as say Johnny Depp coming out as Jack Sparrow or something.
No, unfortunately, that's kind of what I was expecting. But
Right.
the free giveaways are great, especially for the Uber fans that attend
Sure.
this event.
Okay, so moving from there, the first panel was called Walt and the First Golden Age of Disney Animation. What was this all about?
Well, this was great. This had Bernie Mattinson and Joe Hale and Ted Thomas, who's the son of Frank Thomas, and it was sort of moderated by Becky Klein from the archives, and
Right.
it was great. They just spent about an hour going through what it was like on the lot. You know, they told their stories of how they met Walt. I believe Joe Hale had my favorite story of how he met Walt. He apparently was from a small town, and when he started working at the studio, he had actually never been in an elevator. He had no idea how an elevator worked. So one of his first days on the job, he goes in and he gets on the elevator to go up, and he looks down the hallway and he sees Walt Disney running down the hall like, hold the elevator. Uh, and he doesn't know what button to press, so the doors close right in Walt's face, and all he does is as he's going,
Oh,
as
geez.
he moves, he shouts, "I'm sorry."
That's quite the introduction right there.
Exactly. Those are just the great stories that I love to hear from these kind of guys. And
Right. Well, yeah. Anytime you can hear any stories from somebody who had close a personal relationship with Walt Disney from the very beginning there, and then through over the years, it's just always great to hear those people say anything really.
yes, yeah, and they
So
just
they went on to.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
They just went through all the nine old men and just talked about their
Right.
memories of those guys. So it was great.
So they kind of just went through them one by one, talking about each of their sort of important contributions to Disney. I mean, they were really focusing on the world of animation, right? I mean, that's what this whole
Exactly.
Destination D is all about.
Exactly. That was what we were focusing on, and they went through and told stories, and they actually included Frank and Ollie together because their stories were so intertwined. But
Mhm.
aside from that, everyone, they just went through, and it was great. Told some amazing stories.
Now, moving on from there, I guess not all of the presentations on this first day and even some on the second day were permitted to have any kind of photography. I mean, video and audio recording was a big no-no throughout the weekend, but even photos were restricted for the next few presentations, right?
Yes, yes. I'm not really sure why for some of them. I guess it was just because some of the things aren't available, and they just wanted to make sure copyright or whatever was protected.
Right.
But yeah.
So anybody out there watching the video version of the show, I've been showing some pictures and everything. For the next few, you'll just be looking at us talking because we have nothing else to show.
Right.
But it doesn't mean it's any less interesting. Roy E. Disney and the Second Golden Age of Disney Animation was the next presentation. Tell me what that was all about.
Well, it was great. It was just a celebration of this guy, who, they all acknowledge saved Disney, back in the 80s and 90s. He just, and they went through all of his passions, from Cal Arts to sailing to flying to, I mean, just, even resurrecting Fantasia for Fantasia 2000.
Right, right.
It was interesting.
And of course, Roy had. It's a little bit confusing at times because there's several Roys throughout Disney history, and so they wanted to make sure that it was very clear that this was the Roy Disney who passed away, unfortunately, within just the last couple of years. Very instrumental over the last couple of decades in really, being integral in the whole Walt Disney Company.
Correct. Yeah, this was Roy E. And then at the panel talking was Roy Patrick, who was his son, and had some really great stories that they shared. Especially some of the true life adventure stories were great. They showed footage of a particular true life adventure. I'm not sure which one, but it had to do with ducks sliding across an ice pond. And Roy he was cutting the footage together, and apparently when there's footage of this duck sliding, and then it bumped into a whole bunch of other ducks, but it cut right as he bumps. And so they showed it to Walt, and Walt says, "Where's the rest of the footage? You must have it." And he's like, "We don't have it." And he's like, "You do have it." Walt's just like, "You do have it." And so they, showed him another cut, and it was like, "Where's the rest of that footage? We need that footage." Eventually they went up to Alaska or wherever, and they just got a whole bunch of ducks and started throwing them at each other, got the footage in. It looks just like it was part of the original show. And then
That's funny.
They're like, "Oh, you found the footage." Like, no, well,
right.
We got the footage.
Yeah. So not quite true life adventure, but close enough.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really believes that those are fully true life.
Right. All right. So next up was sort of moving from the animation of the past to Walt Disney Animation Studios today and in the coming future. What movies did they talk about that we're all looking forward to seeing?
Well, they talked about Wreck-It Ralph, and apparently they had the footage they showed was about 10 minutes of the film, and I remember I talked to you. Apparently, it was the same footage they showed at Comic-Con.
Right, yeah, it was an introduction, a great beginning of the movie, a really good look at what sort of introduction to all the characters and the video game world and all of that.
Right, so that was fun, and they talked to some of the key crew people and the producer, and they basically stressed the fact that yes, it is funny, but they said the big surprise is that it's very heartwarming. It will touch you, more than you think a sort of a comedic video game movie would,
Right, which is interesting. I mean, when you watch the trailers, they focus so much on like Sarah Silverman's cute little character making fun of Wreck-It Ralph, and you think, oh, this is going to be some kind of hokey, silly movie. But to hear it has, some sort of emotional aspect to it is good to hear. Yeah,
totally. And then they also they showed Tangled Ever After, which I think it's already been released. I don't know.
That's been on TV. It's been out for quite a while.
So I guess that was just a bonus. And then they talked about Frozen, which was quite impressive. I'm actually very intrigued. I was able to interview the director, the writer director, and he basically he said it's very, very loosely based on the Snow Queen fairy tale. He's like, it's mostly original, so that's interesting.
Oh, okay, because I know this idea has been kind of tossed around Disney for a number of years now, and so it's the idea they finally settled on is basically something they've grown within, just kind of, oh, we'll get inspired by this and we're going to make our own story out of it.
Right, and strangely enough, it sounds very similar to the storyline of Wicked. And actually, the Snow Queen is going to be played by Idina Menzel, who played Elphaba on the original run of Wicked. So
right,
it definitely is going to have that feel of a character that.
But Wicked was extremely successful, so that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Not at all. I love Wicked, so yeah, it's gonna. And they debuted a song by I can't remember the writers, but they did. Avenue Q and the Book of Mormon, and so they debuted one of their songs for the new show, and it sounds great.
So they actually sang it there in person at Destination D.
There was a piano player and a soloist. So I don't know.
Not necessarily the person who's singing it for the film, just somebody showing you the song, basically.
Exactly.
Okay. Yep. And so Frozen is when is that? That's coming out next year, I think. And is that a CG movie? It's not hand drawn, right?
I believe it is CG. Yeah.
So what was after that to round out the Walt Disney Animation Studios panel?
Well, the highlight for me of that panel was getting to see Paperman. It was just fantastic. I cannot rave over it enough.
Paperman is the short film. It's going to be in front of Wreck-It Ralph, right, when that hits theaters in
Correct.
November?
Correct. Yeah, and what it is, I was able to talk to the filmmakers beforehand, and the shorts department in at the Walt Disney Studios, or the animation studios, is interesting. It's a place where they encourage experimentation, and they also bring up artists that they feel like could have a unique voice and be able to write and direct a short that would really help just further the art of animation. And it totally worked with this. This was it's a completely silent short film. I don't want to spoil
Oh,
any.
really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's no dialogue. It's not silent.
Right.
There's no dialogue. What they do is they combine computer animated models and hand drawn animation. But it's an amazing process. They start by hand drawing it, and
Hmm.
so basically getting the shape and the flow of the character. Then they put a model on top of that and make sure that the computer model matches that animation, and then they go back in and draw highlights over the model to if you see like any of the pictures that we're showing, that like the hair has hand drawn features all over it, like the lines are all hand drawn just to so it just you can't the filmmaker said he wanted you to be able to not know where one kind of animation started and the other one ended, and it just they wanted to sort of be the seamless blend, and they pull it off great.
And even beyond the visual style of it, I understand it's a very just good story, a good short film.
It's really moving. It's amazing how you care about these characters just so quickly, and then you just get caught up in it. I mean, it felt like a 7 to 10 minute short, and I was ripped the entire time. It was so effective.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I know there's a few other sort of sneak previews of it between now and November, and then of course everyone's going to get to see it in front of Wreck-It Ralph, which everybody should see also, because that looks like an excellent film. Next up on the lineup of Destination D was The Greatest Animation You Never Saw. And did you really have never seen any of these, or was it kind of familiar to you?
Most of it was familiar, but I've been in and around Disney and all that for years.
Right.
But I guess assuming this audience is as familiar as I am, or even more so, I would think that it was probably familiar to a lot of people. There was some commercials like the Jiminy Cricket did, back in the 50s, that I'd never seen, but I'd seen stuff like it. So it just all
Right.
it was nice. It's stuff you don't get to see all the time. Like the highlight for me was getting to see Return to Neverland with Walter Cronkite and Robin Williams.
Yes, from MGM back in the day.
Yeah, it was so good. It was a beautiful print. They had fully restored it, and it was beautiful.
Excellent. And from your notes, I see there was some Roger Rabbit worked in there. I'm always excited to hear Roger Rabbit anything is worked into a Disney event.
Right. Yeah, it was cool. There was a deleted scene, basically where, and if you watch the movie, there is a hole that it fits right in. Basically, Judge Doom and the Weasels take Eddie Valiant to Toontown. You don't get to see Toontown; you just see them take him in, and then he comes out having been worked over and thrown out of their car, and he's got a big burlap bag on his head. He pulls the bag off, and he's got a cartoon elephant head that he has to go and shower with turpentine, and it all fades away. And so then in the movie you see Eddie coming out of the bathroom with his shirt off, and he had just showered and gotten the head off.
Okay, interesting. And then a little bit of a Song of the South surprise in there as well.
Yeah, we got to see the entire Zippity Doo-Dah sequence, and it was great. Big cheers, and it was funny because
I'm sure
Don Hahn was hosting this one, and he was just like, "Stop asking. We don't know if it'll ever be on DVD." So tired of hearing that question.
Yeah, I mean, at the last, I guess it was two shareholder meetings ago now, of course, the question got asked every single Disney shareholders meeting of Bob Iger or whoever even happened to be up there at the time. When are you going to release Song in the South? And it was either the last one or the one before that. He finally just flat out said, I'm not going to take this question anymore. It's not happening, period. Done. So, you know, it's nice that they showed it, I guess.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so animating Disney parks, the next presentation, and this one, once again, photography was back, and it seemed like they showed a lot of really interesting artwork that tied into, of course, you know, Disneyland and all of that. Who was the host of this one?
Tim O'Day and Becky Klein sort of co-hosted this one, and then we had three guests. One of them was Tony Baxter, and he spent the whole time basically talking about his mentor, who's Claude Coates, who had a huge hand in designing the backgrounds in Alice in Wonderland and some of the other animated films. And it was basically focusing on animators or people involved in animation who went on to work in the parks and work on the parks and that kind of thing. So.
And I mean, that's where most Imagineers came from. You know, back when it was WED, there was no Imagineering. There was animation, and so Walt Disney had to say, well, let me take my most talented people and bring them over, and do this new thing called Imagineering.
Exactly. Tony he showed some really cool pictures. There was some great. His mentor was Claude Coates, and he told a great story about how one day when he was working in the parks, and I don't remember which attraction he was working at because I know he was just a cast member to start off with. He on his lunch break he went over and he was able to get a tour of I believe it was Pirates of the Caribbean while it was still being built, and then he was late getting back to lunch, and he got written up and everything. But he said it was so worth it. And years later, once he finally got a job at Walt Disney Imagineering, he met the man that was supposed to be his mentor, and it turned out to be the same man that gave him the tour, and that was Claude Coates. He had no idea that it was him, but thought it was an ironic story.
Yeah, one of those fun little coincidences there. And now the other two on the panel, the other two Imagineers were Eddie Sato and Tom Morris, right?
Right. Eddie Sato, he talked about Herbie Ryman, who was I think he was one of the 9 Old Men. I don't remember though. Sorry, Disney fans.
Well, Herbie Ryman was the one who drew the original Disneyland sort of overview map, right? Correct.
And he had done. It was great. Eddie was an Imagineer back in the, I believe, 90s, and he basically brought Herb Ryman out of retirement and asked for his help in designing, I believe, Main Street in Paris. So he sort of helped out. He called him the Yoda. They needed a Yoda to help figure out this. So they got Herb Ryman.
Yeah, no, you can't go wrong there. And then what did Tom Morris bring to the Destination D party?
He actually got we sort of ran out of time with Tom. He
really
talk very much at all. He mentioned John Hinch, and he talked about really didn't get to talk about much at all other than the Bob Thomas book, the art of animation. And just talked about how much it's worth, and if you can have an original copy, $dollars and all that. So,
yeah. Well, anyone who's been listening to the show for the last couple of months already heard from Tom Morris as I rode around Radiator Springs Racers with him. So, got cut off at Destination D, but at least you got to hear from him a little bit. So,
yep.
And then I guess there was only one more thing for the day. Well, I guess two more things. One more sort of presentation, and it was one that I know you were very much looking forward to.
Oh, definitely. We got to see a concert of Dick Van Dyke and the Fantastics, and it was fantastic. It was just great. It was very informal. They really didn't. They had a set list, but they weren't really going by it. It was just like, well, what do you want to sing now? Oh, well, let's do this. And it was kind of funny. Half the time, Dick Van Dyke really didn't know what they were going to sing. He was just like, what are we doing here? so there's a few senior moments, and he
Yeah.
admitted he was, he's 86 years old. I think he's permitted to have some moments where there was a few times he didn't know what key they were going to sing it in, so they had to tell him, oh, this is a little higher, and he's like, oh, okay, cool. So then they'd start the song over again, and but it was fantastic. They did all of his greats, all the ones that you think of. They even did choreography when he did "Mi On Babu" from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and it was just a delightful evening. I cannot stress it enough.
So this was kind of a reprise of the D23 Expo concert that many didn't get into last time because it was a limited seating to be able to get in there. So this was as Tim had told us a couple of weeks ago, Tim O'Day, that it was another way to reach out to Disney fans and get this group back on the stage for all who have enjoyed Dick Van Dyke's antics for so many years.
Correct, and this past Christmas I was supposed to go see him in Atlanta or in Los Angeles, and he had actually twisted his ankle and wasn't able to do the show. And I believe those tickets had cost me $50 a pop. So I mean, that's
oh wow,
quarter of what I would have paid for this. So I mean, it definitely added to the price tag to make this whole thing worth it. So
right. I understand his far younger wife joined him on stage as well.
She did. It was a little odd. She obviously, I mean, I think they're very much in love, but and it's great that they have a common interest in singing, but there were a few times that it was the Fantastics and her, and Dick was just sitting there. So I think we all kind of looked at each other like, wait, what just happened here?
Well, I'm sure the rest of the show made up for that, and then you had one more item to round out the day that I understand was not nearly as entertaining as Dick Van Dyke.
Oh yeah, so they had a special screening of the director's cut of Walt and El Grupo, and I knew I was in trouble because the first. Ted Thomas, the filmmaker, he came up and he basically said, this is not really a film where there's a story. And he said it's a little slow and just, you got to accept it for what it is.
Right.
So I was a little nervous. And sure
enough. Not
enough,
the greatest introduction to your own film, saying, hey, everybody, this is going to be boring.
Exactly. And that's what it was. And the crowd was sparse. There's not very many people there. And man, it was just after 12 hours of sitting in a chair like that, it was long and slow.
All right, moving past that, then let's jump into to day two. Started off for another early morning for Wacky and Wild Disney Animation. Tell me about that.
It was great. It was basically Eric Goldberg and a couple other panelists that I honestly can't remember who they were. One of them was with. I can't remember. I'm sorry.
I've got the list. Jerry Beck and Billy Stanek.
Yes, there you go. Still not really clear. I think they were historians or something like that, but they didn't talk nearly as much as Eric Goldberg, and Eric Goldberg is legendary, so it was great. But they just went through. I mean, it was mostly a celebration of Ward Kimball and his unique view on the world and his contribution to animation, overall. But they showed, just, to name a few, some scenes from Dumbo, Pink Elephants on Parade, just all the ones that you're just like, that's a little odd, and put together, it's a fair amount of really odd Disney animation, but we all love it.
Yeah, I mean, from Fantasia and certainly the Heffalumps and the Woozles and all of that kind of stuff can get a little wacky at times.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that they showed was, and I believe this can be seen at other places, but I don't know, is Eric Goldberg, to get Robin Williams interested in doing animation, he animated some scenes of the genie doing some of Robin Williams' stand-up, and that was quite funny.
Excellent. Now, the next presentation seems to be one of the highlights of Destination D. It was drawing with personality,
Right.
and it was Andreas Deja was sort of the lead showman there.
He was the only one on stage. It was him and an overhead projector, and it was just at first I thought, oh, this is going to be a little slow, but his passion for the art and the craft of animation was just electrifying. I think everybody was just on the edge of their seat. He was just and the gems that he brought. You know, he just had a folder full of sketches by some of the greatest animators and design people in the business. It was great.
And he was just kind of flipping through them, showing, hey, this is what real Disney artwork, some of the preliminary sketches and character work and all that. This is what it looks like when it's coming out of the studio from these insanely talented artists over the years.
Definitely, and a lot of it was like the development of a character, and so he would show, here's how it started, and here's, this is what, Frank Thomas did, and he changed it up to do this. Maybe his weight was a little different here, or maybe cocked his head this way to indicate this emotion. It was really fascinating.
And then he drew some stuff live as well.
He did. One of my favorite things that he drew was he basically illustrated what Mickey Mouse would look like if he was literally drawn. And I know he's showing some of the crazy Mickey, but before that, he showed. He basically said, Mickey's head doesn't literally work. He said if you actually showed his head turning, his nose would be shaped differently, and so he said there's a lot of fudging you do in animation. Illustrated that quite nicely, and then he moved on and he drew. Remind me, I can't remember the name of the Mickey Mouse where he goes crazy.
Runaway Brain.
Yes, so he was the lead animator on that, and drew Mickey as the crazy Mickey, and then he went on and he was the animator for Scar, and he drew some cool. He just sketched it out for us, and then he finished it up by drawing Jafar, which I think he worked on as well. He sort of got known for his villains.
Yeah, no, well, obviously very, very talented. To be able to stand there in front of an audience of Disney aficionados and just crank out drawings and go through sketches and keep everybody entertained is a wonderful feat. I'm sorry I missed that one. It sounds like it was pretty impressive.
It was nice.
So Tinkerbell, the evolution of a Disney character. It's interesting to have one panel presentation on just a single character, but clearly Tinkerbell is a very important part of Disney animation history.
Yeah, and at first I was like, why are we doing this? I assumed that it was just going to be a promotion for the new Tinkerbell movie, but that was very they pushed that at the very end. It was very short. They spent a lot of time. There was an author, Mindy. I can't remember her name. Do you have that in front of you?
I'm sure I do somewhere here. Oh, it just bonked at me, so I'm guessing that's a no.
It's a new book coming out that she's working on, and just basically chronicling where Tinkerbell came from, and and not just the animated Tinkerbell, but all the way back to J.M. Barrie, and how he
Mindy Johnson.
Mindy Johnson, thank you. She was going to be called Tippy Toe, and then they started to illustrate her on stage. They started using a Tinker's Bell. And then they were like, well, let's just call her Tinkerbell, and it went on from there.
And also there were Margaret Carey and Marge Champion, who were sort of fairy models years ago.
Well, Marge Champion was not there for this panel. She was the Blue Fairy, and so they talked about her.
Okay.
They had the face model for Tinkerbell, who was named Ginny. Oh, I should have Ginny Mac, and she was just an ink and paint girl that they just thought she had the right, sort of pixie look, and they brought her out and they, drew her, sketched her face, and then sent her back to, go, paint some more cells, and they had Margaret Carey there as the sort of the body model,
right.
She was, I think they voted her best legs in the world of like, so they had to get the best.
Yeah, sure. Well, if Tinkerbell's going to be walking around with that small green outfit all the time showing off her legs, then that's the way to go.
Right, right. And this was a great moment. They had found a sketch from Mark Davis that actually his wife had found it just recently, that he had done of the final model for Tinkerbell and what she was going to look like and all the different things that she had to have. Like I think there's like 7 points on her skirt and just all the different bobs on her shoes and things like that. So so they had reproduced that, and that was a free giveaway that they gave everyone.
Oh, very nice. All right, so the next one, very entertaining panel, I understand. Hearing voices, a salute to Disney voice artists.
Yes, it was great. They had 5 or 6 voice artists. They started with one of the most famous that I think we all have seen in action is Bill Farmer, who just he just entertains the crowd every time he gets in front of a crowd. So it was quite exciting.
Did he and the other panelists do their respective voices for the crowd?
He did. There were a few, like the guy that played Sergeant Tibbs, David Frankham. I mean, he didn't, but they showed his scene and everything. He's quite older man, so his voice still. I mean, he still has the British accent, but and then they showed they had Catherine Beaumont there, who was the voice of Alice and Wendy, and she just sounds like Wendy. She doesn't really have to do the voice. They also had Bruce Reitherman, who was the voice of Mowgli, and Christopher Robin for one of the Winnie the Pooh. He's the son of Woolly Reitherman. And obviously he's not a little boy anymore. So
right.
They did have Lisa Davis, who played Anita in 101 Dalmatians, and she did a line. She said it's tea time, Roger, or something like that. So and then they got a big cheer from the crowd. And then of course Chris Sanders, who is the voice of Stitch. He had to do it for everyone, and again, huge cheer from the crowd.
I'm sure. Yeah, voices are always entertaining to see and hear, and just hear about sort of the behind the scenes aspect of it. It's sort of one of the more mysterious areas of production. You see people on screen and you understand that, or you get directors and that kind of thing. But when there's these voices behind it, you don't really know what they look like, and then you hear the voice coming out of their mouth, and it's just kind of that magical connection moment. Correct.
Yeah, Chris Sanders told a great story about why he chose not to be on, or why he chose to do the voice, is because he thought, if we got, sort of an acclaimed actor to do Stitch, like Robert Redford, he'd have to, he said he never wanted to have him, hear himself say, okay, more growling, Robert. He said, I could never direct a legitimate actor to do that. So he said, I'll just
right. So now this next presentation was billed as one of the highlights of Destination D, and perhaps it didn't quite turn out as highlightable as it could have. Snow White, still the fairest of them all. Kind of a mixture of entertaining and not so much.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I've seen a lot on Snow White at the TCM Classic Film Festival. They had Marge Champion there, and so I've seen her speak quite a bit. They spent a large amount of the time talking to a guy named Alex Ranney, who's a composer and a musicologist, music historian, and he had found a lot of old alternate takes of the songs from Snow White, and had found a lot of the sheet music, and it was all quite interesting, but maybe not sort of the highlight of the presentation.
Right, but they did go on to talk about much more about Snow White from premiering back at the Carthay Circle Theater years and years ago, and kind of the animation and everything that went into the film.
Yes, they did. They did focus on that quite a bit. Marge Champion came out and told some great stories. They said when she first started on as the model for Snow White, they gave her a big old football helmet that they had painted black with the ribbon and the bow, and because they wanted the cartoon character to have a bigger head than normal, and they said it just impeded everything. It was too heavy, so they after the
I
first
can
day,
imagine.
you don't have to wear that. So
And okay, great. Once this one, I'm not even sure what this is. A half an hour presentation. Once Upon a Mouse followed that. What was that on the schedule?
that was, you know what? They whisked me away to go do interviews for that.
Okay.
It was just I watched about 10 minutes of it, and it was just a 30-minute sort of montage of animation from what I could tell. So maybe it was going somewhere, but that was it.
Okay, so you didn't even see all that, and that's why I don't know much about it. But it was just a short, sort of small thing, and then I guess you broke for dinner at that point before the grand finale of
Yes.
Destination D. And tell me about what that was.
Well, it was an evening with Alan Menken, and that was exactly what it was. It was not so much a concert, but just a bunch of friends sitting around the piano while Alan Menken played a musical history of his life. It was just great.
Which he has been working on Disney films for who knows how many decades now, and in looking at the list of what he played there, I was even surprised at some of those I didn't even know. Like Little Shop of Horrors, I didn't even realize that was Menken, which is great. I love that.
That was him and Howard Ashman. They worked on that. That was sort of their first sort of big break. They had done a few things that had some good critical responses, but this was one they were like, let's do something that everyone's going to love, and they hit it just right, and that's sort of what got them their future at Disney, because they were hired to do The Little Mermaid based on that.
And of course, it took off from there. I mean, The Little Mermaid and Aladdin and so on, and then even moving on to things like Home on the Range.
Yeah. He acknowledged it was not a huge success, but he played the song with as much excitement as any of them. It's like he loves all of his songs, and just like you love your children. So it was exciting. It was a great night. They even played music from the Sinbad ride in Tokyo Disney.
So, a lot of stuff that was both released. I understand he played some stuff that was cut or never made it into films, or perhaps destined for Broadway or other productions as well.
Correct. He actually played a song that was meant for the prequel to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which
of course
crazy.
Does not exist.
Exactly. It was called Who Discovered Roger Rabbit, I believe, and apparently it was planned to have some sort of musical element. He also played songs that had been cut from Aladdin that they actually were now going to put back into some sort of musical stage version of Aladdin.
Which is also a sticking point over the last few days. I understand he mentioned while performing there that he said specifically, this is for the Aladdin Broadway show. And of course, Aladdin hasn't quite made it to Broadway yet, leaving many to wonder if that is where it's headed.
Right. I'd thought about that. I wondered if I had misheard it, but because apparently the Aladdin show had already played in some of the cities, and they weren't quite sure if it's going to make it. But he was talking. From what I could tell, he was talking about it as if this is going into that show, like it's it's in process, versus we put it in there a while ago.
Yeah, that's what it seems to have come out of it. You're not the only one to have thought that. A number of other people who were there also sort of heard the same thing and thought, that's kind of interesting. And it's actually today and yesterday has kind of come out across a lot of Broadway websites and news outlets, and they're all saying, okay, did he let the cat out of the bag? So, I guess we'll have to wait and see for that.
Yeah.
So that was the end of Destination D. Overall, with the Menken concert as the sort of the grand finale, sounds like it was just a fun weekend. Certainly more ups than just the minor hiccups here and there throughout.
Oh yeah, it was incredible. I mean, it is the Comic-Con for Disney fans. It really is, more so than the D23 Expo, in my opinion. It just was very satisfying all the way around.
Excellent. Well, I will be talking to Steven Clark here on this week's show in just a few minutes. He's, of course, the head of D23. You mentioned him at the beginning of Destination D sort of recap here, and he's going to talk a little bit about the future of what you just said, the D23 Expo, as well as Destination D. So everybody stay tuned for that. But for now, thanks, Jeremiah, for attending Destination D and covering it for us. I'm glad you had a chance to see it all and talk about it, and certainly had some fun in the process.
It was my pleasure.
Joining me this week on Inside the Magic is the head of D23, Steven Clark. Thanks very much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, first, I have to ask, of course, we're coming right off of Destination D this past weekend, the latest installment of it. How did it go? Was it as well received as the previous two events?
Absolutely. It was an extraordinary event, 2 days celebrating our great animation legacy with a lot of filmmakers, voice talent, animators, past and present, and about 800 of our biggest fans. And it really was a memorable 2 days, capped off by one of, I think, the most extraordinary nights in Disney history, which was Alan Menken's concert. For about 2 hours, he shared with us his entire Disney songbook. And I think that Alan doesn't normally do concerts.
Right.
And this is one of the first times he, indulged us, and no better audience to indulge than, Disney fans. And we were just all eating out of his hand. It really was a truly unique Disney experience. And I think that one that won't soon be forgotten.
Definitely. I'm jealous of those who got to be there. Of course, we sent somebody to cover it, and he was telling me that even in the audience for Menken's concert were other, Disney legends just there to take it all in.
Right. We probably had about 15 to 20 of our legends were able to make it, and among them was Richard Sherman, and of course his wife Elizabeth came with him. And, Richard just had the greatest time. So many times it's Richard that gives the concert, right?
Right, yeah.
And, so it was, I know he really enjoyed getting to hear the more contemporary classics. And so it was a very special evening.
Excellent. So talking in general about D23, it's been around for a few years now. When you set out to sort of launch into this, realm of Disney fans and bring these exciting events, was there a grand plan for sort of the path that D23 would follow, and have you followed that, or were you kind of, figuring it out as you sort of saw what Disney fans wanted to get out of it?
Well, by and large, the overall structure of D23 has remained consistent with what we launched 3.5 years ago. We wanted to, create this sort of exclusive membership organization where there's, there are special events, there's special, opportunities, there's the magazine, there's the website, the expo. All of it was a part of the initial pitch. It's what we initially launched with. And, we've continued down that path. Now, what I think has, evolved over time is our ability to grow the membership, our ability to do more events and events and offerings that are based on our member feedback. And there is, as with any, enterprise, you have your highs and lows, and sometimes there's fits and starts with certain things. But whenever we can, we do listen to the feedback of our members. I think a really good example is the request that there be more and more events all around the country rather than just sort of, East and West Coast specific. So this year we were able to roll out our Fanniversary events, and those have been very well received. In fact, so well received, in some of the cities we had to add an additional showing of the program. And then just recently we announced the addition of four more cities. So that's, an offering that we've gotten very high, great feedback on, and we're already starting to pull together the Fanniversary for next year.
Well, yeah, I attended the one out here in Orlando and had a great time. And in going there, I remember speaking to the hosts of that event, and they said as it sort of traveled around the country, it was pretty clear that while everybody's a Disney fan that was coming to those events, there were sort of certain sects or subsets of Disney fans. Maybe the Disneyland locals had more nostalgia about one thing, whereas out here in Orlando, different things and around the country. What efforts are sort of being made to ensure that all Disney fans are really feeling like there's something for them in D23?
Well, I think there's two really good examples. I mean, number one is the Expo. I think with the Expo, if you are a film nut, whether it's past or present, or you like to see the celebrities, or you just like to talk to the legends, or I mean, we have all of that there in one place. And in our next Expo, I would venture to guess, though I don't want to commit to anything, that you'll be seeing a little bit of things like Lone Ranger, Oz the Great and Powerful, Maleficent, Frozen, a lot of great content coming from all over the studio, whether it's Disney or Pixar Animation or the actual live action group or what have you. We have a tremendous opportunity with the Expo for our members to get to interact with our Imagineers and get a peek at what's coming from Parks and Resorts, which is a really unique experience. But then there's also things like Disney Channel, and some people who are the more legacy driven fans who are fans more of Mickey Mouse Club or Davy Crockett or Zorro. Contemporary Disney Channel might not be for them, but it is for the fan that is of that age group, and people who have families and whatnot. And if you saw the Disney Channel pavilion at the last Expo, it was busy nonstop.
It was huge, yeah.
Kids and tweens. And what that tells you is that there are fans at all ages and stages, right? And the Disney experience is not just for one specific set of people. And it was funny because we did get some member feedback from the Expo survey that they didn't like the Disney Channel pavilion. And I was like, well, it wasn't for you. There's other Disney fans. But did you like the Parks Pavilion? Did you like the Legends ceremony? Did you like the studio showcase? Well, those all got very high marks. And I think that that is one thing that I really enjoy about the Expo, is seeing the diversity of age groups that are present. And I think that I am very proud, for one, of having Disney Channel there, and the fact that we were able to draw in so many families and kids into an Expo because of Disney Channel, but then they got to experience all the rest of Disney, which includes the legacy, the future, all of that, and sort of open their eyes to the broader Disney.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see the really, theme park enthusiasts not being crazy about the Disney Channel being there, especially with it being as popular as it was on the show floor. But like you said, it's something for everybody. Not everybody has to go to everything.
Right. And then the other example of that is the magazine. I think, we try to balance, past, present, and future. We try to showcase everything from stories about Walt, or about the development of Epcot, or I'm trying to look for my magazine here. I think someone stole it. but we have our most recent cover is Cars Land. Well, the one before that was Marvel,
right,
and the Avengers. And the diversity of the content in that magazine, again, is something I'm proud of. What the work that the team has done. To really give, for say Parks fans, a really deep dive into our history and our future. But we're not just focused solely on parks. There's so much great Disney content to cover. I think we do a pretty good job of bringing it to your home.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about that D23 Expo, next third incarnation of it coming up August 2013. What stage of planning for that event are you in now? Are you really in the thick of it?
Well, we're still sort of in early stages. The business units, we're starting to have our meetings where we discuss things that are more logistical in nature.
Right.
So we haven't gotten down to the creative part yet, which is the part that everyone really cares about and wants to know what the shows are going to be. Right now, it's more the special events and business folks and PR and marketing teams kind of getting together and looking at the overall layout of the show floor and what the overall entertainment schedule is going to look like. It'll come as no surprise to you that a big part of the conversation this year is tackling the matter of venue capacities and queuing.
Right.
And we were pleased with the number of people that turned up for the Expo in 2011. I think we were caught a little bit off guard, and we're going to, adjust for that. It's hard for events that you only do once every other year to know exactly what to expect. But our plan for this time around is to take our most popular venue, which is the arena. Seats about 4,000 people. We did have to turn quite a few people away from some of those presentations, but we're going to be adding a second theater, an overflow theater that will do live streaming of the show for 2,000 people. So we will be able to accommodate, larger audiences for the keynote presentations. The 750-seat theater, Stage 23, that we had upstairs last time, we're expanding to 2,000 seats. So shows like the Dick Van Dyke Concert or John Lasseter with Cars Land or things like that can accommodate more people. We are also looking at doing reprises of more of the presentations that we know are going to be the most popular, whether it's a live reprise or maybe after hours, opening up a theater after the expo show is concluded, and replaying the program.
Excellent. That was actually going to be one of my questions. I've been to San Diego Comic-Con, and obviously that schedule is absolutely packed with overlapping presentations. You simply can't get to everything. Do you feel like the D23 Expo guests visiting there have the expectations going in that they need to see everything, and that's why some of the disappointment came about, that they weren't able to get into, absolutely every single presentation?
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's true, and I can sympathize with that. Everyone wants to be able to take in everything, but we have 3 days, and the good news is that we have a company and an enterprise here at Disney that is excited about the expo and wants to provide great content. So we have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to business units coming forward and wanting to share their latest and greatest, and I don't really want to turn them away.
Right.
And we do try to program things strategically. So there's not John Lasseter and Kevin Feige going head to head. That's no fun. But anyway, we are looking at trying to do some reprising of presentations, and another thing that hopefully will help alleviate some of the pressure is the way we're going to handle queuing. So one of the things that we think will make people happy is that we'll be handing out wristbands for each of the presentations that are on the I think second and third floors. Where Stage 23, I think it's primarily Stage 23, and maybe it's also Stage 28. I'm not sure about that one.
Mm-hmm.
But that way, you can just go up, get your wristband. You do not have to wait in line. If you have your wristband, you are guaranteed a seat, and you can come back up probably 20, 30 minutes before the show begins. And if you have a wristband, you will get in. If you want to stand in line and have the front row seat, then you're welcome to stand in line for as long as you'd like. But you don't have to do that in order to be a part of those experiences. So we think
it'll be made clear to those who are standing in line versus not that there are only X number of wristbands, and at that, once those are gone, that's it. That presentation is full.
That's correct.
Okay, and what about the arena? Are you planning?
Of course, do keep in mind though that we have more than doubled Stage 23, the size of that. So we should be able to accommodate much larger groups. And then we have a pretty good sense, I think, leading up to this, which shows if the business unit is able to, if the presenters are able to, which ones we would want to reprise, and which ones we live, and which ones we would want to show again later on a tape delay.
And what about the arena? Would there be wristbands involved there, or is it once again just going to be stand in line for half the day trying to get in?
Well, the arena is going to be more right now. Is going to be more stand in line. We don't have an alternate for that.
Okay, so now the arena, just to ask one more question about this before we move on to some more exciting things, the arena is a very big, arena, and it seems to have, hundreds, if not thousands more seats than are being used, and a lot were wondering, the people who couldn't get in were wondering, I would rather have a bad seat than no seat. Why is it that you sort of limit it to that 4,000 number? Well,
that's a good question about I'd rather have a bad seat than no seat. But the reason that those seats aren't used is because of the sight lines. And you wouldn't be able to see the screen. And most of what we present during these presentations is all on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
It's all clips from films and concept art and, special, and it's 3D as well.
Right.
So, even if you could see part of the screen, the 3D is not going to work. So, those are the factors that come into play here. And as you would probably guess, I mean, being Disney, we want it to be the highest quality viewing experience, and you can't do that if you sit in the seats that we've blocked off.
Sure. No, well, that certainly is a reasonable explanation. That have you considered, in addition to sort of replaying or reprising some of the presentations, creating just such a immensely packed schedule for the expo where it essentially will force attendees to sort of pick and choose rather than having that expectation of trying to see everything?
I mean, we do overlap. I don't know if I entirely understand the question, but I mean, we do, stagger the presentations and try very hard to make sure that, arena presentations don't compete with, something that we know has a high,
right.
Pull rate. So.
I guess I'm asking, going back to thinking of San Diego Comic-Con, that has, 50 panels going on simultaneously, and knowing that going in, you kind of immediately realize, okay, I can't see everything, so I'm just going to pick the ones that I'm happy with and go out of it. Whereas if it's sort of like, maybe just one or two overlapping, it sort of builds that expectation as, ooh, if I try really hard, I can fit it all in, and that ultimately is going to lead to a little bit of disappointment.
Well, I think we try our best to make sure we don't counter program, too much, like I said, with the things that are, highly appealing. But the intent with the expo is not that you would be able to see everything.
Sure.
If we are able to reprise some of the more popular presentations in the evening, that at least gives people a crack at seeing it. If not live, they can at least get a chance to see the program, and we'll try to do that wherever there aren't rights and clearances issues, with
right.
security checks and things like that. But we were able to lessen that for the second expo, quite frankly. The fact of the matter is, it's going to be hard for everyone to see everything, but we'll do our best to accommodate.
Okay, so what about the show floor? I understand it's actually going to even be expanded this time around?
Yeah, we are expanding some areas, mostly to allow for greater flow and things like that. But the collectors forum was very popular, and we immediately got a lot of requests to expand that area for the next year. I know that some of the other pavilions were looking for a larger footprint. So yeah, we are taking over more of Hall D, which is the furthest hall down, which we really only used for stock rooms and house. So we'll be utilizing a lot more of a footprint this time around.
The way it sort of seemed like in the past two expos, there's some interactivity on the floor, but it's really a lot of either stores or sort of upcoming products. Has that always been sort of what's been in mind for what the show floor is, or do you anticipate even more interactivity moving forward?
Well, I think that most of it's hard to define, I guess, what interactivity is exactly, but I think that a lot of the opportunities that we did give on the show floor did offer interaction. I mean, because in the Parks and Resorts Pavilion, for example, when you flow through that space, there's Imagineers positioned throughout to talk about the projects they're working on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of feel like that is some good interaction. And then, one of our most popular pavilions, which, I think even surprised us after the first year, was the Disney Volunteers. And those are cast members who are committed to, donating their time for various causes. And the number of guests who flowed through that space was extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people really enjoyed not only being able to participate in a Disney sort of philanthropic activity, but getting a chance to interact with the Disney employees who were there. Was pretty cool as well. I know that Disney Interactive is looking at a larger footprint, and we've had people there who work on the games. Another example is Disney Consumer Products. The people, in many cases, who are there in the various pavilions are the people who worked on the product or worked on the books, and So hopefully there are good places where our members and our attendees are able to interact with.
Sure. And now, in listening to you describe all these different areas and also even talking about Destination D, it seems like a big focus of what D23 is all about is to differentiate itself from the theme park experience, which of course is rides and shows and attractions, whereas a lot of what D23 is meeting these folks who create all of this, the minds behind it, whether it is theme parks or movies or even consumer products or video games. I mean, is that a really important part about what D23 is all about?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one of the things that we came out of the gate, wanting to achieve, was to give our fans that sort of, deep dive, that rich experience, whether it's getting a better understanding or hearing stories you've never heard about the Disney legacy, meeting the people who make the magic, meeting the people who, make the theme park attractions, who create these great animated features, the filmmakers who make these landmark live action films. That quite frankly it's history in the making. I mean, the Mary Poppins and the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea of today. We look at them as just as though we went to the movie theater or the parks did, a special promotion with pirates, or whatever. But I mean, this is Disney history. It's 20,000. Pirates of the Caribbean is 20,000 Leagues for today's, audience.
Right.
And being able to have the filmmakers and the cast and folks like that on hand, I think is a really special opportunity and something that we really are very pleased that we've been able to bring the members. And when you go to some of the smaller events that we have as well, whether it's something like Smoke Tree Ranch Roundup or even a Destination D, one thing that I really love about D23 and what we've been able to offer is it is the accessibility. Not only is the D23 team, I think, rather accessible, but, you look at Smoke Tree Ranch Roundup, and you had, the voices of Goofy and Donald and Mickey and the voice of Disneyland and Richard Sherman, and all those people were there, and and our members had, a really unique opportunity to actually interact with them over the period of 2 days and get to know them. Destination D was a similar scenario. I can't tell you how many times I saw people, chatting with Margaret Carey or getting an autograph from, even Alan Menken gave a few autographs at the end. It's really a great chance for people to meet, the people who make the magic. And that, I think, is a big part of what D23 is all about.
Absolutely. I think those are my favorite elements of D23. On the same token, though, or I guess on the flip side to that, there are some events that are sort of repeated year after year. You've got like Sip and Stroll over at Epcot and things like that. How are you able to prevent those sorts of events from growing stale?
I think, well, sometimes we do like this one, this Sip and Stroll. Well, first of all, we do the Sip and Stroll events because we love the Food and Wine Festival, and we want to.
Absolutely.
No, last year we invited Bob Gurr to join us, and he was a big part of the event last time. And what was fantastic about that is that he actually, Bob cares so much about the Disney fan experience, and he spent a lot of time interacting with virtually everyone that attended that event. No one who wanted to talk to Bob Gurr was turned away. Mm-hmm. And what a unique opportunity to talk to a true Imagineering icon. More than a legend, he's an icon. The things that he created and achieved, are beyond compare. And so, so that was an interesting, element that we added, last time. This time it has a Halloween theme. It's Sip and Scream. But beyond that, one of the things that I think is special about some of these types of events is that they are, it's about tradition and it's about being social. And one of the things that we do try very hard to do with D23 is also the social aspect, to meet other fans from around the country, find people of a like mind, or find, the people around who are the biggest Tinkerbell fans. Maybe, you're not alone.
Right. Yep.
And I think that the social aspect of a series of events like Magic and Merriment or Sip and Stroll are unparalleled. In many cases we have repeat visitors, and sometimes when you look, for example, at a Magic and Merriment event, we always do candlelight as a part of the event, or we always go to Osborne lights, and we had noticed that there were some people that had been there, the first year and came back the second, and we said, we had such a demand for this show, we kept some of the offerings the same. We hope you're not going to be, bored or anything. I said, no, this is now part of our Christmas tradition. And, we love coming to this. We love, being able to sit around and celebrate the holidays with other fans. And, we look forward to getting to sit down in our reserve seat for candlelight. And we look forward to going back and seeing the lights, the Osborne family lights, after the park is closed and things like that. So, while there are events like Destination D and an expo that we always want to have be different, and they're always changing, there are some events that I think it's comforting to know that you're going to go and have, sort of, there's some differentiated elements to it, but, a nice relaxing, weekend with friends.
Now, will there ever be, I have to ask because I was part of it and it was exhausting, but I would love to see it again. Will there ever be another great Disney scavenger hunt?
That remains to be seen. We'll have to see. We're going to find a time that we can do it that's not so hot.
Yeah, it was record heat both times, I think.
I know. I think we felt like we got jinxed, and so we're shelving that one for a little while.
Okay.
But, I'll never say never.
The last thing I want to bring up from D23, which I think is one of the most phenomenal things that only D23 could produce, is the Treasures of the Walt Disney Archives exhibits that were, at the D23 Expos and now over in Simi Valley at the Ronald Reagan Museum. Everything I've seen from this is just tremendous. Do you feel like D23 is really the only arm of Disney that's able to bring fans close-up access to these sorts of Disney treasures?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I also oversee the Walt Disney Archives, and so the answer is yes. I'm just kidding. But I think the answer is yes to your question. I mean, D23 and the Walt Disney Archives are very tightly linked and work very closely together, as you know. I mean, if you go to any of our events, the archives team is there. They create a lot of the content, and when we started working on the Treasures of the Archives exhibits for the Expo, we immediately saw value. We knew before the first Expo opened that people were going to, laugh, cry, weep, whatever it is when they see what we, had sitting in that hall on the second floor. And, we did it again the second time with mostly new content. And, when you have a hit on your hands, you want to be able to share it with folks for more than, 3 days. Mm-hmm. So we started our conversations with the Reagan Library, and they actually approached us. And we put together the Treasures of the Archives exhibit, which, there's no announcements yet, but could very well travel at some point. And I think that, we created a very special 12,000 square foot exhibition that covers the breadth and scope of the entire Disney legacy. One of the most amazing and my favorite part of that exhibition is Walt's office. And, just to give you an idea of the level of detail that our archivists put into these exhibitions, every knickknack on Walt's desk is in the exact place he had it when he died. Every book that's on the shelf is in the right order and tilted the right way. There was one book that was upside down, and someone said, "Oh, that book's upside down." I said, "You're right, it is, because it was upside down when Walt left his office." And, the attention to detail is extraordinary, and the reason that it's to that level is because you have a team of people running D23 in the archives who really care. It doesnn't happen if that's not the case. If you just have a bunch of people who are, pushing together an exhibit and just trying to get it done, mm-hmm. It shows. I feel like you walk into the Treasure of the Archives at the Reagan, and you feel the specialness of something that was lovingly put together by people who care. And, the whole historical part upstairs, one thing I really love about the exhibit is the whole upstairs area is a more formalized gallery space. And then you go downstairs into the pavilion, and you enter sort of environments from all the different films that we're showcasing, which I think is really a special, unique way to present Disney history and to show off these props and costumes and set pieces. And I can assure you that we've only scratched the surface of what we have in the archives. We have 75,000 square feet of warehouse space all around Burbank and Glendale, and we're bursting at the seams. In fact, we're trying to figure out a little bit more square footage. around town. But we have a lot to share, and I think D23 members and our fans are going to be really pleased with what the future has in store.
Excellent. And we're going to see more of that at the D23 Expo next year, right?
Yep, that's right. We already have started. We know a little bit about what's going to be in that exhibit, and it is not what's been seen before.
Great. And coming up in the near future, Epcot 30th. What other D23 events are on the immediate horizon?
Yeah, Epcot 30th. I mean, for a one-day event celebrating, the anniversary, it sold out very quickly. I mean, 1,000 people will be attending that event, and we're really looking forward to that one. Great presentations. If you've been on Disney.com or D23.com, you can see what the schedule is. When they first pitched the agenda to me, a lot of what they're covering I hadn't even heard before. So I'm really looking forward to seeing those presentations. But after that, we follow that up in tandem with Sip and Scream, and that's an example of sort of guest feedback too. People don't want it to fly out 1,000 times, so we put two of our bigger events, next to each other, to satisfy that demand. And after that, we have Magic and Merriment down at Disney World, and then we'll be announcing our 2013 events, probably around the November timeframe.
Okay, one last question. It seems like every time the D23 Expo and Destination D come around, some rumor pops up saying, this is it, this is the last one, obviously just because you haven't announced another one. Does it seem like you're going to keep those rolling for quite a while?
Keep rolling those events?
Yeah, just year after year after year.
Yeah, I mean, I've been here. We've been hearing those rumors since the very beginning.
Right.
So until we're notified otherwise, we're still doing great events, and we're still going strong. There's a lot of big things on the horizon for D23 before the close of this year. I think they'll reveal themselves in the next month or so, and I think there's a lot of magic and special experiences and opportunities that D23 has in store, and we're looking forward to the future.
Excellent, as am I. Steven, thanks very much for taking the time to chat.
Oh, no problem. My pleasure.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And we're going to wrap up the show here. I'm going to skip listener feedback this week because obviously we had a lot of conversation this week. Hopefully you enjoyed the dive back into Destination D from last weekend. Thanks very much to Jeremiah for covering that for us. And then, of course, following that, had a great chat with Steven Clark of all the ins and outs and everything that's happened in the past, present, and still to come in the world of D23. I do thank him very much for taking the time to sit down and chat about all of really everything that is D23. So hopefully you enjoyed all of that. Coming up next week, of course, Star Wars Celebration 6 is coming up this week. I probably should have mentioned that during the news earlier. Disney's going to have 2 panel presentations there, as well as a couple of booths. Carbon Freeze Me is returning there, as well as plenty of merchandise, and I'm really looking forward to all of that. I don't know how much of that I'm going to be covering here on the podcast, depending on how those panels go, but definitely head on over to InsideTheMagic.net. Starting this coming Thursday through Sunday will be 4 days worth of Star Wars Celebration. And next week, because Star Wars Celebration will be going on all the way through Sunday, I may not actually record next week's show until Monday. We'll see. Maybe Sunday night, depending on how long I actually stick around at the final day of Celebration. So we'll see on that. In the meantime, I, of course, do want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. You can find out more about their services by visiting magicaltravel.com. And, of course, visit us over at lanyardlab.com to see all the different styles and custom lanyard options that we have available. You can request a price quote today to receive a free digital preview of your lanyard design. And between episodes of this show, of course, visit our website over at InsideTheMagic.net for links to follow us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. We just passed 30,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is fantastic. So thanks for watching all our videos there. And, of course, you can keep up with all the latest Disney and theme park fun all the time, every day. So thanks very much for listening and for watching each and every week. And do have a magical week. Bye.
Beautiful tomorrow, just a dream.